It's talking season. The Big 12 Media Days get underway in Las Vegas later on this morning. What to make of Media Days, what will come out of them. We have some predictions and also some thoughts of what might occur in Sin City.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day, also first view of the day if you're watching this on YouTube. And a big thank you to all of you who like to call everydayers right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your original daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Of course, some terms apply. All right, it is Big 12 Media Days. They're getting underway at Allegiant Stadium down there in Las Vegas. I had plans to be in attendance, but work needs here in Salt Lake City necessitated I remain in Utah, but looking forward to this all the same. I had a great experience last year at BYU's first ever experience with Big 12 Media Days, got to meet a ton of media members and had a great opportunity to catch up with players and coaches from a number of different programs to get a feel for the conference. And the biggest thing that I think is going to come out of today's media day is I'm waiting for the tit for tat. What I mean by that is I'm waiting to see, okay, Utah is going to be speaking today at Big 12 Media Days, and we all know that BYU and Utah, they are rivals in all things. What will BYU announce today that will inevitably try to overshadow the Big 12 Media Days portion for Utah, and vice versa? Tomorrow when BYU takes to the podium and is walking around Allegiant Stadium, how will Utah respond in kind? I am interested to see if these two rivals can afford not to do that, and we'll see what ultimately transpires. But I can see it a scheduling announcement for BYU because literally just yesterday, Utah, the news came out that Utah will play Miami, the University of Miami in Florida, not Miami of Ohio. They will play in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium to kick off the 2027 football season. So what does BYU do to respond here? I'm expecting something. Maybe they have it planned up. Maybe they're going to cook it up overnight. I think something will come out on BYU's front. I'm also looking forward to see what I'm going to call the Neil Brown Memorial Outburst during podium sessions coming up. A team that is picked to finish near the bottom of the conference. In West Virginia's case, which Neil Brown is the head coach of last year in Arlington, he got up there on the podium and he was adamant that West Virginia was not going to finish in last place. He obviously was a guy that was on the hot seat. There was a lot of talk that he may be fired by midseason. Any of you who are longtime listeners of this podcast, I said as much. I believe that he was going to be the first coach hired in the fired in the Big 12. But how did West Virginia respond? Well, they only won 9 games. So pretty good stuff and made Neil Brown look like an absolute genius. Does Kalani Sitake get up there and stick it to the media and say, hey, you picked us 13th? We're not finishing 13th, because I think the exact wording that Neil Brown used last year is, I guarantee we are not going to finish in last place this season, and therefore they did not. Could Houston and their new head coach decide to say something? Could Arizona State decide to fire off something? We'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing which of these has the opportunity and takes the opportunity to make such a bold statement and see if it comes to fruition. I will just say this. Kalani Sitake, he is way too measured when it comes to his media conversations. I don't think he'll be that brash up there on the podium, but hey, a guy can hope for that. That'd be really fun to see. Other things I'm looking forward to learning. Obviously, we'll have plenty of coverage on my station that I work for in my day job, KSL Sports Zone. I'm looking forward to hearing what the reception is of the newcomers to the conference. Obviously, BYU was the far western wing, all on an island by themselves last year. I got up during the Q&A session with Brett Yormark and got myself on the TV asking a question to Brett Yormark about expanding west. And he said, hey, we're always evaluating all things, but right now we're really focused on the here and now. Well, little did we know that just a little while later, everything was going to blow up. So I think that Brett Yormark had an idea something was going to go down, but now Utah, Colorado, and the Arizona schools, both ASU and Arizona, are members of this conference. How are they received? What is their messaging to the conference as they enter the conference? I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say. Are they going to play nice in the case of a program like Utah, which some of their social media following in terms of their fans out there have been unabashed in saying this is just a pit stop before we jump on to bigger and better things? I don't think Utah's coaches, led by Kyle Whittingham, and the players themselves are going to say any such thing, but that would be interesting. I do wonder how the reception will be for the newcomers in this league. And then the final couple of things, I guess there's two other things I'm looking at in terms of Big 12 Media Day. What do Kalani Sitake and his players project in terms of their confidence in the upcoming season? Any of you who watched and or listened to yesterday's podcast heard me one-on-one with Kalani Sitake, and he projected a lot of confidence in this team. A couple of you, I think, ascertained that based on his comments, if you want to read between the lines, yes, there are question marks at defensive line. There's question marks at quarterback, but outside of that, Kalani Sitake, I think, is fairly bullish on his roster and his program, as he should be. I think BYU has got a far deeper roster this year than they did a year ago, and it should be more battle-tested, having gone through the Big 12 for a season. So I'm interested to see what the messaging is from BYU's players. Connor Pay, our longtime friend here on the podcast, a regular contributor and guest here, he is going to be down there at Big 12 Media Days. We have plans to catch up later in the week to have him recap his experience and let you hear what he learned from being at the Media Days. But I look forward to seeing what BYU's coach, Kalani Sitake, as well as players project to the media and how they decide to kind of frame the upcoming season. And then the final thing for me is, what does Brett Yormark have to say? Does he have an ace up his sleeve saying, hey, we are continuing to pursue expansion, we're looking at this? Does he decide to announce that the Big 12 is officially being rebranded as the All-State 12 or the All-State Conference or whatever they decide to do in terms of bringing in that money? I'm interested to see what Yormark has to say. He's lauded as a visionary. He is a guy who thinks outside the box in all things. What will he have for us, obviously, during his initial conversations with the media? And will there be any huge pronouncements coming out from him in the conference at Media Days? Fingers crossed we do get something. And I'm pretty sure that, unlike Kalani Sitake, the chances of him saying something like Neil Brown did a year ago about we're going to finish higher than 13th, I would say that on the opposite end of the spectrum, Kalani Sitake is not very likely to say that. I think it's very likely that Brett Yormark has something for us at Big 12 Media Days. But plenty of coverage to come. Make sure you keep it on the KSL Sports Zone, my parent station. If you want to hear all those conversations, obviously I'll have coverage for you guys in a couple of days coming up on this podcast as well, to let you guys know what the sights and sounds and what I'm hearing out of Big 12 Media Days are. We'll have plenty of coverage for you guys, as we always do on the podcast. All right, coming up here in just a minute, let's flip over to basketball for a minute. Could BYU be looking at adding a pair of gold medal winners? What do I mean by that? We'll talk about it as we continue on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Now, if you like to get out to MLB games like I do, I just absolutely enjoy the ambiance and being out at the big league ballpark. Well, I want you guys to enjoy that as well. And the best place to get your tickets is with our friends at Game Time. It's an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, makes getting your tickets faster and easier. And prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. Think about that. Save some money by waiting it out. With killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying your MLB tickets, and they want to help you guys out. If you'd like to get out to the ballpark, I'm a guy who likes to get into Southern California and watch the Dodgers or the Angels play. I would love nothing more than to get up and watch my Seattle Mariners play as well. I'm going to check out all my options this summer in the remaining time I have to go with our friends at Game Time. And the best part is they've got all the options available to you guys, including the lowest price guarantee, or they will credit you 110% of the difference of your tickets. Think about that. There's nothing to lose. In fact, you'd make more money if it did come down to it with that lowest price being found elsewhere. So take the guesswork out of buying your MLB tickets and do it with our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of your guys' patronage. If you have not done so already, I want to encourage you guys to check out our friends over at the Locked On Sports Today show. Are you sick of watching Fox Sports or ESPN and having to turn on the volume because all the shouting going on the other networks? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel with all the big stories for you every single day to bring you all the fluff. Bring you all the news without the fluff. Excuse me on that. The best part is Locked On Sports Today brings you chemist analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, let's talk about BYU basketball. Now, you may have missed it over the weekend, but 2 BYU recruits in the 2025 recruiting class won gold for the team, for Team USA at the United States Youth National Team. They were participating in a tournament over the weekend at the U17 World Cup, and JJ Mandaquit and AJ Dybantsa. Yeah, the man, the myth, the legend, AJ Dybantsa were both from Utah Prep in Hurricane, Utah. They helped Team USA win its 7th consecutive gold medal in the FIBA U17 World Cup with an absolute dominant 129-88 victory over Turkey on Sunday. Now, both of these players are high-level athletes. They are both going to play their final prep season upcoming for Utah Prep down there in Hurricane. What are the chances BYU could add a pair of gold medal winning teammates to their roster? Well, considering the track record that Kevin Young has had since taking over as BYU basketball head coach, I can't rule it out because these are 2 of the 11 players that we know of, according to 24/7 Sports, that have offers from BYU. And quite literally, every single one of them are either a 4-star or a 5-star athlete. Gone are the days, apparently, of BYU chasing the 3-star athlete. Maybe they will revert back to that if some of these other high-profile options don't work out. But, man, are they swinging for the fences, to use the baseball term, when it comes to basketball. They're shooting half-court shots, as it were, I guess, to use that example. And they want to bring in the best talent they can. Now, the biggest thing to understand about this is that both Dybantsa and Mandaquit have offers and options across the country. Dybantsa is the #1 overall recruit in the 2025 recruiting class. I'm not sure I've ever seen this in all my years tracking recruiting, to see a guy with a score from our friends at 24/7 Sports with a score of 100. That is what AJ Dybantsa has. He is the can't miss of can't miss prospects in 24/7 Sports eyes. And he's leading, like I said, the 11 players that BYU has offers out to currently in that 2025 recruiting cycle. In fact, the most recent offer to Ryder Frost from this past weekend, he is from Phillips Exeter Academy out in their Exeter, New Hampshire, 6'6" sharpshooter. He's got a 4-star rating, and his number is 90. He is the lowest, I believe, tied with Bryce Hurd of the offers. I guess Jalen Holland as well. 90 is the floor for BYU's offers right now in the 2025 recruiting cycle. There is nothing, apparently, that Kevin Young will not do, because he believes that he can win big at BYU, and he plans on winning big. And if he can get any one of these 11 players, it feels like, on this offer sheet, you can go to 24/7 Sports and see the entire offer sheet. And feel like any one of those guys would be a home run addition for the BYU basketball program. But in the case of this, with 2 guys, speaking of AJ Dybantsa and JJ Mandaquit playing at Utah Prep Academy, what are the chances BYU can convince both of them to move 3 hours north and play their basketball for at least one season? In the case of Dybantsa, and who knows how long Mandaquit he may be a one-and-doneer himself. But what will it take, and what are the chances that Kevin Young can flip them and get them to come to Provo? I would put, if you give me the 2, so essentially, if you of the 2, the chances Kevin Young gets one of them, I would say at 25% right now. Now, had you asked me 3 months ago when he was hired what the chances of BYU getting either one of those players were, I would have said that BYU, having already offered Mandaquit because he'd been playing for Utah Prep for longer, I would have said maybe 5%, 10% at the very best. But so 25% is an improvement. The bigger point to be made here is Kevin Young, what can he ultimately pull off here? Can he grab somebody that would just absolutely bring the house down inside the Marriott Center proverbially and have Cougar fans already going nuts ahead of the upcoming basketball season? Now, TBD on when these 2 players, along with the rest of these guys, ultimately pull the trigger and announce their commitment decisions. But I like the fact that Kevin Young is unafraid to go after the biggest and brightest stars in college basketball. He's got a really, really compelling pitch to sell to these young men. I have worked with some of the biggest stars in the NBA. They have me on speed dial. We talk often. I have plans to bring Chris Paul and all these guys, who am I thinking of? Devin Booker to Provo to work out with me here in Provo. Why don't you come play hoops here and be a part of the brotherhood that we're building here and making it a true NBA factory where we can get you guys ready to play at the next level? He's got a coaching staff in place that is literally scouring the world. I believe that they did have a coach at this game for these two players. Let me read the 24/7. Tim Fanning was in attendance in Turkey to watch Team USA win that gold medal over the homestanding Turks. So really cool to see BYU swinging and trying to get any one of these young men to come and play for the Cougars. I feel like any one of the combo of guys that could pick BYU out of this 2025 recruiting cycle, at least they've offered so far, would be a really, really nice addition. But obviously, if you can get AJ Dybantsa to stun, I feel like the entire universe might implode if AJ Dybantsa gets up there, if he's doing the hat ceremony, or if he has a unique way of announcing his commitment, and all of a sudden it's BYU blue and that stretch Y that he's representing. Can you imagine the reaction of the college basketball recruiting universe? It will literally go nuts. You will see story after story about what is Kevin Young, what is the secret sauce in Provo? What is he doing to build this BYU basketball program into what they are? What can they ultimately accomplish with a guy like Kevin Young at the helm of this program? How soon can BYU make a run at a Final Four? It is incredible to consider, once again, where BYU basketball was when Mark Pope left this program and headed to Kentucky. And obviously, he's enjoying his time because he's made a comment recently that I look so much better with the UK on my chest. Okay, it's all him bloviating and pumping up his new job. But to consider where BYU is at when he left the Cougars to go to Kentucky, and the thought was, okay, who are they going to be able to bring in to kind of stabilize this program and just keep it on the footing it's at? Because they had a really, really nice breakthrough season year one in the Big 12. That was the thought process. I vividly remember talking on this podcast and talking with a number of you in our Locked On Cougars Insider group about the situation that BYU found itself in. And to consider that BYU went out and hired Kevin Young, and he has not only stabilized this program, in fact, he has taken and kicked it up a notch or 3,000, it feels like, and he is just absolutely hitting home run after home run after home run when it comes to hitting all the high notes for this basketball program. It is a really, really fun time to be tracking BYU hoops. And once again, what are the chances BYU brings in any one of these 11 4- or 5-star talents that they have offered in the upcoming recruiting cycle? It's anybody's guess. But the hope is that AJ Dybantsa, JJ Mandaquit, now that they're sporting, well, it's not Olympic gold, but it's a gold medal all the same, and they have an opportunity to maybe represent a little closer to home in terms of their college days before jumping to the pro ranks, why not pick BYU? A big part of it, I guess the other thing I'll add real quick, is it's going to be really interesting to see how Jaeger Denham as well as Cannon Catchings develop this year. And if they can ultimately really show that a one-and-done scenario works at BYU and they have elevated their prospects when it comes to the pro ranks, that's only going to entice further guys like AJ Dybantsa and JJ Mandaquit to look a little closer at BYU, maybe think that's the place I want to be. All right, we will wrap up today's edition of the show by taking a look at some of the other news and notes in BYU sports. We have, if I'm not mistaken, 11 former BYU athletes headed to the Olympics. Really, really impressive feat for all of them to be representing in Paris coming up later this month. And also some news on what's going on with BYU football. And also a former Cougar gets engaged, and it has a bigger story than just the engagement, even though that's a big deal in and of itself. We'll get to all that as we roll on right here on Locked On Cougars. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for tuning in. If you have not done so already, please sign up for our Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Be a part of a growing community of diehard Cougar fans. And now I call you guys diehards because you guys want the inside scoop of everything I've got on BYU sports, and it's coming to your phone via our friends with the Insider Group via text message. Cannot get much simpler than that. You're not having to go to a message board and sign into some chat room or go to a Discord channel. It's coming to your phone in the form of a text message. It's not get much more direct than that. You can sign up today using the link in the show notes below. Whether you're watching and or listening to this, you get a 14-day free trial and just $5 a month afterwards to join us on Locked On Cougars, our Insider Group, and hope you guys will all consider doing that as we ramp up here in the football season. Everything I'm hearing, I'm passing along. First thing I hear, it's going out to our friends on the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. It's a really, really fun time, and hope you guys will embrace it and sign up for us. All right, as I mentioned, there are a bunch of BYU Cougars headed to the Summer Olympics. Now, it's not 11, as I mentioned. I think I screwed up my number on that, but really cool to see some names like Jimmer Fredette, 3x3 hoops, a very impressive run in the lead up to the Olympics. He won the MVP honors at the Edmonton Masters this past weekend for playing for Team Miami, his team that he plays for. I would expect that Jimmer has plans on hoisting Olympic gold and having that gold medal slipped around his neck coming up in Paris. And I, for one, will be very keen to watch how he and his team progress through this. We have 3 marathoners from BYU. Their famed track and distance and cross-country program has yielded 3 marathoners in the upcoming Olympics. Connor Mance and Clayton Young will represent the United States of America in the marathon. Rory Linkletter, he is from, I believe, Alberta, if I'm not mistaken. He's going to represent Canada in the marathon. Then we got Kenneth Rooks, obviously representing the steeplechase. James Corrigan, who is a current BYU student, also going to be representing in the steeplechase. Really cool story, obviously, if you recall. Finished third in a surprise U.S. Olympic trials, then had to go across the country less than a week later and run the Olympic standard. Did exactly that. So congratulations to those two. And then also in the steeplechase, Courtney Wayman, one of the absolute stars on the women's side of things. Courtney Wayman absolutely killed it in the steeplechase. She'll be there. And then also Whitney Morgan. I don't know if you guys saw this this past weekend. She finished 5th in the 5,000 meters. And the thought was, okay, well, you have to finish in the top 3 to go to the Olympics. Well, 2 of the people who finished in front of her that qualified for the Olympics opted to go with other events. I think one opted to go with the 10,000 meters, and the other opted to focus on the 1,500 meters, therefore moving Whitney Morgan up 2 slots into the 3rd slot, where she will now represent Team USA in the 5,000 meters. Congratulations to her. Well-deserved, obviously. And then the final one, I did not know this. I got a big tip of the cap to Jerem Jordan from BYU TV for pointing this out. Stephanie Rovetti, she's going to represent the United States in rugby sevens. She's a former BYU women's basketball player. So really cool stories across the board. Plenty to track in the upcoming Paris Olympic Games. As you would expect, the vast majority of the representation for BYU is in track and field, but still to see Jimmer playing 3-on-3 and then the Stephanie Rovetti in rugby sevens. There's a lot to track in the upcoming summer games, and we will obviously have updates for you guys as things progress in Paris. I think that the opening ceremony is July 26th, if I recall correctly. So looking forward to that. And like I said, updates to come as things get underway, and hopefully all goes well for all these players. Now, the final note I got for you guys today, I don't know if you saw it on Instagram yesterday, former BYU wide receiver Dax Milne, fresh off of snubbing my team at the BYU Media Golf Tournament a couple weeks ago, has gotten engaged. And yes, it is Zach Wilson's ex-girlfriend. Now, the whole thing with the whole Zaxby situation, crazy story on social media when it all blew up, but things have calmed down, and apparently Dax has found true love, and I wish him and his new bride-to-be the best. Honestly, Dax has been a really, really good representative of BYU football during his time playing in the NFL. He got injured last year for the Washington Commanders, but he's thought of highly enough with that at that team that they kept him around on injured reserve. Now he'll have to re-earn his spot this year with a new coaching staff in place in Washington, new ownership group and the like. But hey, really cool to see him get engaged over the weekend, and congratulations to I almost said Zach. Zach got engaged recently as well, but congratulations to Dax in this circumstance, and congratulations on the engagement. That's a really, really cool thing to see as things roll on here. All right, so there you go. That's what I got for you guys on today's edition of the podcast. Like I said, plenty of coverage to come in the next couple of days when it comes to Big 12 Media Day. What did Brett Yormark have to say? Were there any big announcements from him? What are the thoughts on the newcomers to the conference? What's the reaction to BYU in year 2? We'll have plenty for you guys. Even though I'm not in Las Vegas covering it like I planned to, we'll still have plenty of coverage for you guys in the days to come right here on the podcast. I tried to kind of mix and match those two statements and jam them together, but don't do that. That just obviously confuses people. But hey, a big thank you, as always, for you guys' support of the podcast. It's July. It's a busy time. Talking season is here. Who knows what nonsense may come out. Also, on kind of conversely, who's bloviating and trying to make themselves sound better than they actually are. That obviously comes out of talking season as well when it comes to these media days. But let's get it going. Should be a really, really fun time. And a big thank you, as always, for all your guys' support of the podcast. It truly means the world to me. As many of you check it out on a daily basis as you do. So as we always say, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first visit. I'm butchering this. First listen and or view of the day, whether you're watching and or listening to this. And obviously a big thank you to all of you once again who are everydayers with us right here on Locked On Cougars.